everybody, and welcome to the Careers in Management panel. My name is Tisa, and I'm going to be your moderator for today's session. With me today, I have some exceptional guests who are here to speak to you about the fascinating world of management. Ahead of time, I'm just going to go over a few housekeeping items. So I just ask that everybody please mute or turn off your cell phone for the entirety of the session today. And I also ask that you remain seated for the session. If you must leave, please exit through where Sean is standing at the bottom. No one is to exit through the top, unless, of course, there is an emergency. There are exits at the top and on both sides. I feel like a flight attendant. And as most of you know, this is a Learning Passport eligible event. So to keep things efficient, I'd just ask that you please fill out your Learning Passport ahead of time, and then Sean and Miriam will stamp them for you at the end. So with me today, I'm going to start here on my left. I have Jason Arsenault, Area Rental Manager from Enterprise Care Rental, part of Enterprise Holding Incorporated. Next to him, I have Natalie Higgins, Vice President, Corporate Affairs and Communication, Intact Financial Corporation. Then we have Lynette Mitchell, Manager, Human Resources Operations and Staffing Support Advisor, Staffing and Assessment Services Branch from the Public Service Commission of Canada. Just a short title. And then we have Janet Martin, Vice President, Commercial Financial Services for RBC Royal Bank. And next to her, we have Ross McNeil, owner of Duggars. Please help me welcome them to the stage. So we'll get started with the questions. I will ask that you guys, if you have any questions, just please postpone them till the end. There will be a time for you guys to ask questions to the panelists then. So we'll start with you, Jason, for question one. Can you please briefly describe the organization you work for and your position?
Yeah, sure thing. So basically I work for Enterprise Rent-A-Car, which is part of Enterprise Holdings. We operate Enterprise Rent-A-Car, National Car Rental, Alamo Car Rental, along with Car Share Division, Fleet Management Division, Commercial Truck Division, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So really trying to be a full transportation provider as a company. My role, I'm an area manager with Enterprise, been with the company for nearly 15 years this fall. Started fairly fresh out of university, like a lot of you are probably hoping to do with some company, maybe Enterprise. Really my responsibilities now really include full operations of the business, so I'm involved in the hiring process, which means interviewing potential candidates, involved in the full operations of the business in terms of outside marketing with our accounts and partners towards growth, with the full customer service platform we're trying to achieve, and onto the profitability piece of the business. So really kind of the full responsibility.
Great. Thanks, Jason. And Natalie.
Okay. Can you hear me? Sorry, I'm a little shorter than he is. So my name is Natalie, and I'm Vice President of Corporate Affairs and Communications with Intact Financial Corporation. So for those of you who aren't familiar with our organization, we are the largest P&C insurer, so property and casualty insurer in Canada, with about close to coming up on $8 billion in direct written premiums and about 5 million customers from coast to coast in Canada. My role in particular kind of has a rather large portfolio, so I look after public relations, internal communications, government relations, corporate social responsibility, and translation for our company, again, from coast to coast nationally.
Great. And Lynette, same question for you.
Well, I work for the Public Service Commission of Canada, and the Public Service Commission is the federal central agency that reports to Parliament and is responsible for safeguarding the staffing system of the federal public service. So in our operations in the Atlantic region, the services that we would provide are really related to graduate and student recruitment. We do a number of also government-wide recruitment initiatives, as well as staffing and assessment services. So we would be doing testing and assessments of candidates who are interested in jobs for promotion, or even assessments for development, so assessing individuals' potential for manager and senior management level positions in the federal public service. And my scope of activities on a day-to-day basis would be around managing the operations of the team. I manage the cost recovery budget for the group, so forecasting revenues and that sort of stuff, as well as the health and safety. I also, in my staffing support advisor role, am responsible for interpretations to corporate clients, so corporate departments in terms of policy interpretation. So that would be interpreting the Public Service Employment Act, the Public Service Employment Regulations, and the Public Service Commission's appointment policies.
Right. And Janet, same question for you, please.
I feel like my job is a lot easier, maybe. So I'm with RBC. Just in terms of background, I think we recognize it's a very well-recognized brand. We are one of Canada's largest banks, and actually one of the largest banks in the world. Based on our market capitalization, we are one of North America's leading diversified financial services companies. So we do provide personal and commercial banking, along with wealth management, insurance and investor services, and capital market products and services on a global basis. We have about 78,000 full-time and part-time employees. And with that complement of staff, we serve over 16 million customers. My role as VP Commercial Banking, I have a team of 9 commercial bankers here in Halifax that are industry specialized, and they support entrepreneurs within our community. We cover every industry. I think on our team, we have 2 teams in Halifax. One has real estate and supply chain and film, and I have everything else on my team.
And Ross, we'll move on to you.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming here. It must be the people to my right's credentials that get you here. It wouldn't certainly be mine. But it is nice for them. I appreciate the Mount having us here and all you being here today. I have to tell you, I would love to have attended university. I only had one stumbling block, and that was grade 12. But I got to tell you that I think university is such an important thing, and I have nieces and nephews that I encourage every day to keep up the work that they're doing at their respective universities. I am involved in a family business. My dad started in 1971. It's a clothing store, Duggars on Spring Garden Road. We employ 20 people. It's been an independently owned company here since 1971, as I said. And I joined my dad basically out of necessity right out of high school in the late 70s. And so as an independent small business owner, you do absolutely everything that there is to do in running the business, from hiring staff to paying, just everything possible that there is in running a business. But I can certainly see from especially one nephew that's been very successful in his university, and many conversations I've had with him, that all the things that I've learned over just making mistakes, his education has started him at a much higher level, certainly, than I ever did. So it's a real encouraging thing to see, and I would have been a great way to start. It would have saved me a lot of difficulties, but that's where I come from.
That's great. For the next question, we'll start with you, Natalie. How has your career evolved, and are you doing what you had planned to do?
This is a great question, actually. I have a bit of an interesting career path, if you will. So just by way of background, I'm actually Mount alumni. So my background was taking my undergraduate's degree in public relations here at the Mount. So with that, I think when I came into the Mount, I had big expectations about the world and what I was going to do. I was going to be a sports broadcaster. I was going to be media relations with the RCMP. I've done neither of those 2 things. And I think that, what I found with my own personal career is that you come out of university, you have ideas about what you want to be doing, and those change very rapidly as you start to get some exposure and figure out what you're really interested in and what you're passionate about. And so for myself, when I left my PR degree, when I completed that, I had gone into actually human resources, so I deviated away from public relations. And a lot of the skills that you learn in your public relations degree can be applied to so many different courses, and you'll find that in management courses, business courses. And so through HR, I kind of built my career over a number of years, starting with Loblaw Companies Limited, and then I transitioned to Intact, formerly ING, in 2004. And so in my role in human resources, I had great exposure to our operation and got to learn a lot about insurance. And I'll tell you that I've never met a single person in my industry who says they grew up wanting to be in insurance. It's something that people fall into. It's one of those really fascinating careers that's fast-paced, changing environment, but until you're really in it and you get exposure to it, it's hard to see that from the outside. And so with that, I had actually transitioned out of HR and went into our operations as a director of sales and service. And through that role, worked with our underwriting teams and different teams across our business. And then last year moved again into my current role, and now I'm actually commuting back and forth from Toronto to Halifax every week. And this morning, flew in from Toronto to be here this afternoon. So fortunately, my flights were not delayed and I was able to make it. But it just goes to show that I think you have an idea when you come out of school around what you want to do, but it's so fascinating if you're willing to take risks where your career can really take you.
Thank you. And Lynette, the same question for you, please.
Thank you. I guess I would kind of echo some of Natalie's comments because I didn't have, upon graduating from high school, a clear sense of what I wanted to study in school. And unlike Natalie, who finished and is an alumni from the Mount, I did 1 year of public relations and then I transferred to St. Mary's. I earned a Bachelor of Commerce there, and I actually specialized in accounting and thought I would go do my CA, and eventually, after having an internship, decided no, I'll pursue a CMA, but I never worked in accounting. I had worked 2 summers as a summer student with the Federal Public Service, and it's interesting for me because I'm really passionate about the programs my team talks about in terms of student recruitment, because I was one of those students who was recruited through those programs. So I really take it close to heart. But I ended up working in HR for 2 summers, and then upon graduation, I was offered a entry-level position in HR, and all my friends were going off and doing accounting, and I always knew I had an interest in working with people. I am so glad I took the path that I did take, and as Natalie said, you know, sometimes taking some risks. I didn't know if maybe this would be a career-limiting move, but for me it was great. I ended up working in learning and development. I then moved on to another position in staffing, and those were both entry-level positions. I was only there maybe a year and a half, no more than 2 years, and then I took on an advisory role. I worked as an advisor with 2 federal departments for about 3 years, and then I moved into the management cadre after that. So I think one of the key messages I would say too is, you know, I although I knew I wanted to eventually be in management, I certainly wasn't a manager from day one. And so that's, I think, a piece of advice that I would give to folks around the table and in the auditorium today is you might need to work your way through your organization before you become a part of the management team. But I feel personally that management and leadership are 2 different things, and you can be a leader no matter what your role is in the organization. And then I stayed in the management role I was with Public Works and Government Services about 5 years, and then in June 2014, I came to the Public Service Commission, and that's where I am now.
And Janet, can you tell us how your career has evolved?
So you had 2 parts of the question. So am I doing what I plan to do? No. I too graduated with an accounting degree, and when I was in grade 9, from that age on, all I ever wanted to be was a chartered accountant. And then I became a chartered accountant and realized I never really knew what a chartered accountant was. And I didn't really enjoy it. And so I think I learned a lot from that experience. And I say I'm an accidental banker because of that experience. But it gave me, I think, what I did know about myself is I did love the numbers, and I had an analytical mind. But there was definitely a part of me, very similar to you, that loved dealing with people. And that was in the entry stages of your CA, you don't get as much of that. People run from you, not always to you when you're in audit. And I think that commercial banking has really given me that opportunity. So I started off with a credit union in commercial banking, did that for 4 years. And then I wanted to work with a company that I could grow with because I was still young, and saw the opportunity with RBC and pursued them for quite some period of time, close to a year, looking for an opportunity. So I did that for another 6 years, was a regional sales coach, learning more, working with leaders and working on my impact and influence, which I think you need to test out as you grow in your career. Then I took a curve and went into human resources, which was unplanned, but great learning. I think you learn a lot about supporting your business and strategy, and HR touches everything in a company, and if it doesn't, I would question why it doesn't. And then they let me back out into the field. And again, now working closer with our clients in my first people management role, and have done that for the last 5 years with the team that I'm with now in commercial banking. So I think you learn to say yes to a lot of things and see where it takes you sometimes, and have a bit of a leap of faith. And in saying and acknowledging when it's a no, this isn't really working and it's not fitting, and acknowledging that early and taking the learnings and moving on.
Thank you, Janet. And Ross, can you also describe how your career has evolved, and how are you doing what you had planned to do?
Well, I want to be a pro golfer, so I guess the answer would be no to that. But it has evolved, and I now, if I knew back then what I know now, I would love to be doing what I'm doing. And I think really what it stemmed from was my dad had started a company that was really a competitor of what you would know of, like a Moore's kind of clothing business. And in the early 90s, we were told by the banks and by the accountants that we were broke and we should shut the business. But we had a plan to move downtown. We used to be here in the Bears Road Shopping Center. So the fact that nobody believed in the fact we could do it, I did something to, I know my dad at that age was 65, but even with him it lit the fire as it did with me. So the challenge to defy the people that think they know business really drove us. So that store started at 800 square feet, and today it's 10,000 with 20 employees, and we own the building. So I think that has it evolved to where it's really been a very satisfactory kind of ride, and it's from a very low point. So I would say today that I'm probably the happiest guy alive, and with a company that's very profitable and very successful, from a couple of guys who were supposed to not still be around.
Jason, we'll finish this question off on you.
Sure thing. I guess, you get a panel here, so only 1 in 5 of us ever knew that we wanted to do what we're doing today. So at a young age, I, of course, knew I wanted to rent cars for a living. A lot of people find that hard to believe, but no, like a lot of you folks, I went through my university career, unfortunately, at another school. Don't hold that against me. But, I can remember sitting here and certainly thinking about all those job opportunities out there, and obviously aspiring to do a lot of different things. I was lucky I found Enterprise right out of university, and for me, I took the position with Enterprise as a management trainee, which is the only position we really hire for as a job. Thankfully, 15 years later, it turned into a great career with a company that I love working for, have a lot of job enjoyment every day. And I guess, everyone's kind of shared a lot of really valuable points, I think, from their perspective. The one thing I kind of encourage you guys to think about as you're, hopefully getting into the job market in some point in the next year or two, is trying to really make sure you understand what is important to you and find a company that you believe can support what's important to you. And, I lucked into my opportunity. I wouldn't lie to you. It wasn't any skill or any, amount of research or anything that I did other than finding an organization that really fit my values, fit my beliefs, had the opportunity that I could succeed in the organization with some hard work. Definitely a lot of luck along the way, but it certainly worked out in the long run. And I have a lot of peers and friends and associates who've been in their second and third and fourth companies at this point in their careers. And it's a kind of rare thing these days for someone to be at the same company for 15 years, especially as a starting out of university with zero experience. So certainly it's been a great opportunity for me. It was not what I expected to do coming out of school, and worked out really well in the long run. So.
Great, thank you all. Question 3, what do you like about your work? What do you dislike about it? And what do you find the most challenging? And Lynette, we'll start with you for this question.
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, I really love working with people. I found it really rewarding to be leading a team. And a career in HR, I've really been able to be exposed to staff and managers, our clients, in a variety of different ways, and I've found that really engaging and understanding how people think and what drives them, what instills passion and fire. So I would say that's probably what I like the most about my job. My team actually is responsible for a number of outreach initiatives that we do. So they go to career fairs and provide information sessions on employment with the federal public service. And coming to panels like this, I think is really fun too, because we get to share our feelings and our ideas and opinions with young minds like yourselves. So I think that's really engaging. What I dislike sometimes with my job in particular, sometimes working with a large organization, it can become very complex into getting something done, and you need levels of approval, or you need to engage partners from different parts of the organization, and the system isn't always very clear on how you should do that. So I think that those types of elements can be a bit challenging. I think that's part of corporate culture to a certain degree as well, but I think it happens in all organizations. I certainly don't think it's unique to mine, and in other organizations I've worked for, I think that challenge is there. But in terms of what I find most challenging in my work is actually leading people. And it's what I like the most, but I think it's what's most challenging too, because every individual is driven by something different, and getting to know your team and knowing them really well, understanding what drives them, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and how do you leverage that, I think is really challenging as a manager, but I think it's really fun too. And I think that's what makes it rewarding when you see the people that you interact with day to day come together and deliver a project or initiative that really has impact in the community or in your target market. So yeah, I would say that's probably the most challenging piece, but yet it's the most rewarding.
Great. And Janet, I'll ask you the same three-part question.
So my likes would definitely, I would say my number one would be one that I didn't realize going into commercial banking, but it's the connectivity to the community in which you live. And I've lived in different communities over the years, New Brunswicker by birth, and then now feel a passion for Nova Scotia. But I would say, when you're in and interacting with entrepreneurs, you get their view of the world. I think you also get a sense as to the impact of whether it's changes made in our legislation, our economic drivers. You really get a sense as to all of those impacts on the people that we live around every day. And so I and then the fun little things of knowing what's going in that building that you see starting to pop up, and everything that went into it that we never see, behind the scenes. So I think I really love that part of my job. My team, definitely. I think they bring out, the best and worst in all of us. I think working with people, you learn and evolve and take what you need to from each other. So I think, having the opportunity, I do a lot of career coaching and mentoring outside of my team, and I think you take as much, if you're doing it with the right spirit, you take as much out of that as you put into it. And I think that's been a great experience for me, one of my happiest times. And I think you've talked about challenging times with banks as well, and I think some of those toughest conversations we've had with clients, and seeing what it does to them and it can turn around, and seeing them succeed has been a great experience for me too. And seeing people's dreams come true. I think it takes a lot of courage be an entrepreneur, and a lot more than what I have working for the bank, put it that way, and to really see everything that goes into that and see people be successful is probably the third. Dislikes, I would say I don't really dislike anything, and I never have, about what I do in my career with RBC. I will say, we are a really large company, as I said at the outset, and we're a highly regulated industry. So with that comes, if you have a creative mind and you can see different ways of doing things or more cost-effective ways of doing things, it's not easy to implement change at the level that we are, even as a senior leader in Atlantic. It's very difficult to impact change. But I think you never stop trying, and you can be a thought leader regardless of what role that you're in. But it does make it a bit more challenging if you like to get things done. And so that would be also my challenge. And I'd say we're living in an environment now in banking that's fairly unprecedented in the pace of change and technology and new competitors coming into our space, and really looking to laser focus in on certain segments of our business that we have traditionally done. So it's really it's a challenge, and it's a great opportunity, but it's forcing us to think differently about how we do business, which is a good thing and a challenging thing at the same time.
Great. Thank you, Janet. And Ross, can I move on to you with the same question?
Sure. I hope these folks are going to get a chance to ask a few questions, not listen to us all day.
They sure will.
As far as what I like about the work, not dissimilar to what you said, the community involvement that you have is actually quite satisfying. There's a lot, especially as a small local business, we are called upon every hour of every day to support the community, because the big box stores, you can't get a hold of them. So, but that's actually quite gratifying, and there certainly is a responsibility that we have, and I'm proud to say we excel in what is necessarily expected of to do, but that is very gratifying. And the customers too, because of the small community. You see, we only buy 2 neckties, for example, because half the dinners in town, it's a combination of 2,000 people, and nobody wants to be seen with the same tie. But that is all part and fun of what I love to do. What do I dislike about it? Saturdays. I've probably worked every Saturday of my life since I've been 16. So, a weekend for me is Saturday at 6 o'clock. Not now so much, I have to be honest, but up until a couple of years ago, it was my weekend started at 6 o'clock on Saturday if a customer wasn't there late, and then it ended Monday morning. So that would be the only dislike that I would have. As far as challenges, people are always challenges. Employees it's a big part of what you want to have to do, and as other people have spoken about, to get the right person in the right job. It's a challenge in the retail business until somebody gets in there to realize that it can be a substantial living. Much better than would be probably the norm because of the volume and what we sell, but it's still hard to attract the real good people, although I can say now I think there's one staff's been there 2 years is the least up, and a couple up to 30 years. So we managed to maintain great staff at an average age of probably 34 right now. But that is always a challenge for sure. The other thing for us is the internet, and I have 2 14-year-old twins, and the big challenge as a retailer for us is there's so many purchases on it. Probably everybody in this room is buying. I can tell some of the stuff that's bought local and bought on the internet. You can see it. But, that's a big challenge for us. Fortunately, at the high end, and that was part of our move, you can buy Hugo Boss, you can buy Armani, but it's difficult and it's a big expense, and those kind of companies, you will not likely save any money. It is a challenge, though, that sometimes customers will come in and want to try on an Armani suit, and fortunate enough, we're pretty good. We know when they're just trying to buy it to see if they can order it online. But that is a challenge, and for us as a small company to be out there visible on Facebook and Twitter and Snap, it's just unbelievable. But we have to be somewhat involved in all of that, and it's not, 8 years ago, the newspaper and the radio would cover everybody in the province. Probably everybody in this room is not reading the newspaper so much now, or you're reading it online or on your phone. So I would say that's one of the biggest challenges that we have, is to attract young people like yourselves. We did open a store 10 years ago, probably quite innovatively, called D2s, that brought in, I don't know if you're too young to remember maybe, but lines like Ed Hardy and those kind of things. That's evolved into a higher end store now too, doing more like John Varvatos. I don't mean for this to sound like a commercial. I'm just trying to explain to you what we've tried to do. But that is a challenge because I know friends in this, my dad's vintage who their stores died with the owner. So, I think we've been very good at not letting that happen, but it's a challenge, that's for sure.
Thank you, Ross. Jason, I'll loop back around to you for the same question.
Yeah, sure thing. It's funny, the question kind of comes up a lot in some of the interviews I do from potential candidates, and they'll always kind of say, hey, why are you with the organization? Why have you been there for 14, 15 years? And so what I like about Enterprise and what I do is there's really two key things. A lot of things I could bore you with, but there's really two key things. The people we work with and the environment we have. So, we have to have a bit of fun coming to work every day. We were just talking before we started today about, in the Maritimes and some of the organizations that, have a different feel than what you might get in Toronto or in Upper Canada. And, our organization, at least locally here, and I'm sure in a lot of places, it's a very fun, light, we're customer facing, and that comes with a lot of responsibility and challenge, but we like to have fun. We have a good youthful environment, and even though I'm on the upper end of that youthfulness, as you can probably tell by the salt and pepper hair, we still like to go and have a few laughs at work and make the workday go by. So that, that's the first part. The second part is, even though I'm, again, into my career, I'm an area manager now, whatever that is supposed to mean, but, our company has so much growth opportunity that for me, the sky is still the limit, and I know, again, everyone's kind of talked about what's brought them to being with you guys today. All these organizations have a lot of opportunity in front of them, so Enterprise is one of those places where the sky is the limit. It all depends on really what I want to put into it and where I'd like to go and how far I think I can get myself to. So. In terms of dislikes, there's not a whole lot that comes to mind. I know Ross was kind of talking about social media, and I'll use that maybe as a dislike/challenge, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but as a company and as a brand these days, we're so concerned and responsible for the brand image, and that's really changed from the typical media, even when I started 10 years ago, to what we see today with all the social media impact. So the thing I'll say that is most challenging is when in a customer service business, when you're faced with whatever it is that's maybe not as credible as it was back in the day when you used to be able to deal face-to-face with the customer, that can be challenging to really represent your brand well. So it's certainly a concern. We spend a lot of time talking about it. But more importantly for you guys, as companies like us, kind of grow and you're looking to market yourselves for that first or next job opportunity, think about how you can help an organization because of your understanding with social media and how important that's going to be for, your career and for your value to add to an organization. So I think that's, good for.
Thank you, Jason. And Natalie, we'll finish this question off with you.
Perfect. And I'll try and be brief. I do know that we're starting to run tight on time. So I guess from a like perspective, what I like most about what I do is having an opportunity to build things. And not things in the typical sense of carpentry, building a birdhouse, but really building ideas, being innovative, taking processes and things that exist inside a corporation and kind of turning them on their head and trying them in a new and innovative way. And despite being in corporate environments, there's a tremendous opportunity to truly be entrepreneurial if you seize that opportunity. And I think for me, that's one of the most rewarding things that comes from jobs in larger corporations, is being able to seize that despite not truly being in an entrepreneurial role. From a dislike perspective, there isn't actually much that I dislike about my job. One of the things that I would say is that at times we get extremely busy, and what I find is that when those times pick up is that you're often in a reactive mode and you don't have the opportunity to be as proactive as you like. And for me, that certainly is not a position that we want to be in relative to the areas that I'm accountable for. And from a challenge perspective, I would have to say media would be our single greatest challenging area in the area that I'm accountable for. When you do your best, to go out and to mitigate potential media challenges, be them in traditional media or in social media, as was mentioned, and they go sideways. But I do think that through that challenge, you also have your greatest opportunity, and that opportunity is the opportunity to go out and really shine and show what you've got, show the character and morality that exists inside your organization, and to make those things right when they go wrong and when they go sideways. So I like to think that while it is a challenge, it also creates some of our greatest opportunities to prove why we're here and doing what we're doing.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Question 4 is, can you tell us about the types of jobs that might be available for students considering a career with your company? And Janet, we can start with you for this question.
So if specific to management, I'd say the paths there, similar to as you shared, the paths are endless. I think you just need to pick an entry point, is what I would say, into the organization. And if it aligns, if you're working with an organization that their values align to yours, and you work really hard at what you're doing, and you share ideas, and you bring people together, I think you stand out. I think you can be a thought leader in an organization and find opportunities to become part of a management team. I've been part of that and not had direct reports in the past, but have been responsible for human resources for all of Atlantic Canada and making sure that we take care of our people. And I saw that definitely as part of our senior management team. But a lot happened before that point that made me a credible voice around the management table. So I say pick your entry point. Sometimes that's coming in and working in our retail outlets, our what we used to call our branches. And sometimes that's my entry point was commercial banking, but I don't think that there's one. I don't think that there's one with our organization.
And Ross, same question for you, please.
Sure. Would somebody just give my man a little hit over there, though he had a rough night last night. We're not keeping him awake. I hear you, brother. Right now, there's not a lot of potential. We have a full staff, and nobody's left in a while, unless you want to come and write a check and buy it. But what I would say is this, that there's a young man from Iran, young fella from Iran that we hired 8 years ago, and he left us 2 years ago, got poached away to a major retailer in Toronto. And I stay in touch with him when I'm up there all the time, and he is now their third biggest salesperson in the country. And he attributes that to the training that we gave him at Duggar. So I think there is potential if it's not within a smaller company like ours. I think we do a pretty good job at showing somebody who likes the retail industry that it can be lucrative, and if you do it right, he's doing very well right now in Toronto, I can tell you that.
Great. Jason, same questions for you. I know you touched briefly on the management trainee programs. So.
Yeah, my answer is pretty simple because we do really only hire 2 positions. So the main one we hire is what's called a management trainee position. It's an entry-level position, and really the foundation of what we try and do culturally at Enterprise is you start. I don't say at the bottom, but you start at an entry-level position and you work your way up. So you start in the retail environment, renting cars and doing the day-to-day, and you work your way up through the program. Our company, I'm not sure the exact statistic, but it's probably higher than 99% of all management starts as an MT. Our CEO, Pam Nicholson, who's one of Fortune's, I think she's number 20 on Fortune's 50 most powerful women in U.S. business, started as a management trainee in 1980. So the foundation of the company is very simple. It's very straightforward. The other position we do hire, which might be of interest to some in the room, is as an intern. So as you're completing your university or college education, you can intern with Enterprise, which is a 4-month summer internship. I believe we're almost completed our intern hirings for this summer, but there's probably some postings still out there in Atlantic Canada. But really, it's just the one position, the management trainee, and it's a start at the entry level and build your way through. So.
Great. And Natalie, how about within your organization?
So I think we probably have a little bit of everything, and we hire at the entry level in every aspect of our organization, and are strong advocates for promoting from within. So it's a great organization to get your foot in and then to kind of grow a career with. So whether it's finance or it's communications, whether it's traditional insurance, technology, all of these different areas of study that you're all studying now are available inside our organization. We have specific programs similar to those that were mentioned at Enterprise. We have commercial lines trainee programs where we bring people in and we train them relative to our commercial lines side of the business, so selling and underwriting. And these often provide rotational opportunities for people doing this in Atlantic Canada. They have the opportunity to as well visit our other offices in Ontario as an example to learn and to get exposure to some people who are actively doing the job. We also have a graduate leadership development program that we do with master's master's students. And this brings master's students into our organization, and they do 6-month rotations all around the business. And the idea is to give them as rounded an experience as possible. And again, it really heightens their trajectory relative to management experience going forward. And then lastly, I think what I would just note is that, again, no different than Enterprise, we have summer internships across the country in all of our offices. And we post for those typically across February and March and recruit and bring in anywhere from 6 to 20 students per office in the country.
Great. Thank you. And Lynette, could you tell us a little bit about the jobs that may be available within your organization?
Sure. Well, the first point I would want to make is, although I'm with the Public Service Commission, the PSC really does recruitment for all federal departments. And so you might not have a particular interest in the Public Service Commission per se, but if you're interested in work with the federal public service, I mean, we hire so many different types of jobs. If you think about it, we have barbers working at National Defence, and we have doctors working with Health Canada, and lawyers at Justice. We have financial people with our Finance Canada. So there really is a very broad scope of work within the federal public service. The programs that we bring our students in is through the Federal Student Work Experience Program. That is an inventory that students can apply to at any time throughout the course of the year. It's renewed every October. And the great thing about, so we call it FSWEP, is that once you've done a placement with us through the FSWEP program, after you've graduated, you're eligible to be hired on without competition to the federal public service. So sometimes you may have heard federal public service, you have to go through an advertised competitive process, and it can be very competitive, but that's an advantage that you have by working for us as a student. I was a FSWEP student, so I'm really passionate about it, and I think, like Jason said earlier, once you've started in your organization early on in your career, you become really passionate about sharing that message with other people around you. So I would definitely suggest, if you are interested in public service work, that's a program that you consider. Upon graduation, we do have a post-secondary recruitment program, and because we're recruiting for so many different types of positions, it really is broad in nature as well. We have different career streams, so it's program management and program delivery, we have IT, we have engineering, human resources. So that programs ran annually, and you can apply after you've graduated, or if you're still a student, you'd apply like the fall of the year that you're graduating, of your 4th year. So that campaign runs every September, and usually runs mid-September to early October. So it's only one time of year that we do that, and so if you're interested in public service, that's certainly something that you'd need to keep in mind as well.
Thank you, Lynette. For question 5, we'll start with you, Ross. What do you see as the key management skills needed to manage organizations today?
Well, I can only speak from a smaller business, but to me it's getting people engaged in their job and being honest with them and sharing with them what you're trying to accomplish. I think too many times management runs around trying to make all the decisions when a lot of the real strength is in the employees, and they just don't want to tell you maybe. But if you open it up and engage to them, I think it makes a big difference how you can manage with them. And to try to, for example, we have every staff member, before the people that go away to buy, we have every staff member fill out a form of what they liked, what lines they liked, so they feel engaged in what the buyers are going away to buy. So then when it comes in, they feel like they're a part of it. So that's just from our perspective, but I think and the world is changing so fast that it'll be a lot easier for all of you, but to at least be knowledgeable enough in management that you can talk to young people about how the effect of the internet and all these kind of things have got on the business, because they're the ones that can really help you see where you can take the business. So I think, that is probably a big part of it. And quite frankly, a lot of us, it's, management is you're with them day to day. So I think it's a little bit different role that we share things on differently than maybe you would if you were in a bigger organization. But the one thing I would say is that if you're honest with the people and tell them what you think, most often it works a whole lot better than not saying anything. It just brings them out. So I think that would be the one key thing to me.
Great. And Jason, can you touch on some key management skills you see necessary?
Yeah, sure. I'll maybe just give two quick thoughts. And I'll start maybe with being adaptable. And again, I don't want to bring everything back to the social media, but the world is changing so fast, and we value people in our organization. I'm sure everybody does here, that can bring new thoughts, new ideas, but also be adaptable to situations. There's not many jobs, whether you're behind a desk or you're out with the public or whatever you're doing, that you don't need to be able to think on your feet to be adaptable to situations. Just because a solution worked 2 years ago in the same situation doesn't mean it's going to work today. So we really need people that can just be adaptable and I'll say not rigid, but more flexible in terms of their decision making, the way they communicate. So, and it leads me to the second thing that I think is probably one of the most important things is communication. When you're in management, you're going to deal with a million different personalities, you're going to deal with a million different skill sets, a million different motivations, and it's really important you understand that the way you communicate directly impacts the performance you're going to get out of your team, the motivation, the longevity, the retention, everything that companies really value in terms of keeping people engaged, getting good results, and then having them stay with the company for a long period of time. So, and even more so today, you don't always just communicate one-on-one with people in this kind of setting. A lot of it is electronic, a lot of it can be phone, and it's really important that you're able to find your own communication style that you can really deliver a good message in a lot of different ways and obviously get people moving in the right direction.
Thanks, Jason. Natalie, add to that?
So maybe to take a slightly different view than what's been shared, because I think all those things are really important. It's genuinely caring for people, and I can't emphasize that enough. If you want to lead and you want to be a manager, you have to genuinely care for people. If you don't like people, management isn't for you. And I think that when we talk about genuinely caring for people, to Ross's point, it's about having those frank, honest, and open conversations with people, being able to deliver constructive feedback, not always telling people what they want to hear, sometimes telling people what they don't want to hear, but doing it in a way that they can take it and they can build something from it. And I think in that same vein, and Lynette touched on this, is that there's a really big difference between being a leader and being a manager. And I hope that everybody in this room aspires to be a leader, because leaders have the ability to inspire, to motivate, and I think that these are things that, as young leaders coming up and taking your education, these are the types of skills that you want to cultivate to truly be successful as managers.
Great.
Within the federal public service, we actually have 6 key leadership competencies. The first one is creating vision and strategy, and that's really, I think, to Jason's point around being able to communicate with people and taking a broad vision of where for us, the government is going, and then articulating that or translating that for your team into something that's concrete and actionable. As well, mobilizing people, and that's that whole element of people management that Natalie just talked about, and being able to get them on board to deliver the results you want to see in them. And it really is important to be honest, as Ross said earlier, in terms of giving feedback. Sometimes those more difficult conversations actually lead to the best results. So that's something that's very key, I think, in terms of managing people. Integrity and respect is extremely important in the workplace, and that's pretty self-explanatory. But if you're committing to something, to make sure that you're going to deliver on it. Achieving results, obviously, so being able to deliver, and collaborating with stakeholders and partners. So not necessarily being able to just collaborate within your team, but what about those people that are outside your team? They may not even be in your organization, that you need to be able to leverage and build relationships with to execute your programming as effectively as possible. And lastly, innovation and change. And I think that's probably one of the most difficult pieces, because change in an organization can be really well received and it can not be well received. And if you don't have those change agents on your team or on your side, I guess I should say, supporting that change, it can be very challenging. So being innovative, being able to question the status quo, and finding solutions to those challenges that are around you.
Okay, Janet, we'll finish this question off with you, and then we'll move on to the audience to see if they have any questions for the panel.
Perfect. So I had 4 words written down. I had communication, change leadership, resiliency, and authenticity. And some of that has been spoken to by the panel. Communication, the only thing I would add would be being a great listener and having, so it's not just about telling your story, it's about listening and being aware of what people are really saying. When they're telling you one thing, they might be saying something completely different, and it's your job to interpret that and do something with it. And knowing what questions to ask at the right time to get to the right decision in a timely manner, and make sure you have enough information to make the best decision possible. And not just going with your ideas only, because I think the sum total of the team is better than just one. Resiliency, because you're going to fail. They're going to try things that don't work. And that makes you stronger and better if you take the learnings and you move on. So you have to be able to dust yourself back off and pick yourself up and be able to move forward. And your team is, if you're managing people, and speaking of management, that they look to model themselves after you. So you have to display that skill set. And be yourself, because if you're not, then you're putting on a show, and people see through that really quickly. So your collective and thoughts are some of the individual thoughts, and you should be yourself. So those four words really stood out for me.
Great. Thank you very much. Is there any questions from the audience? If you have one, if you can just raise your hand, and Sean will be kind enough to bring you a microphone so we can all hear what you have to say. I have more questions. I can keep going, but we want to hear from you guys.
We're not that boring, are we?
Just wondering if you have any advice for a mature student, second career.
Advice
Anyone
in
can take that, I guess.
I'd say advice in any particular area.
Accounting, sorry, I'm major accounting, minor management.
I don't know.
I'll go. I know within the federal public service, leverage on the experience that you have. I mean, you obviously have great experience that you've come to the table with prior to this career, so your career you had before, and leverage that experience. And the skill sets that you've developed through that experience. They may not have been accounting per se, but there's tons of skills that you'd have, I think, that we have all talked about in terms of management, have been more soft, right? And less of those technical skills.
I think you're right, and I appreciate that. But just to give you a perspective, it's going from piloting an aircraft to accounting. It's different, but I'm learning that, there's a lot of things I can cross over with. Thank you.
And maybe I can just add, you made the comment about a pilot. I actually work with a pilot. He's now a claims manager, if you can imagine that. Went from piloting an aircraft, commercial airliner, to managing a claims department. But what I would say about that is this goes back to that risk-taking that I think I was mentioning earlier. And I think there are a lot of employers in this world today who really respect people who are willing to take those risks and are willing to take risks on people who are trying new career paths and trying new directions. And one of the things that I guess I would highlight is that I look at an organization like ours, and we're hiring veterans now. So we have actually implemented a veterans training program. So you see more and more organizations are looking for that maturity. They're looking for people who bring life experience. So this is very much valued, and I would say that certainly use those attributes to your benefit.
And I would add that if you went to Burnside Industrial Park, within 3 hours you'd get a job. I think that I've looked for a lady with your kind of, because she was not a pilot though, that's amazing. But to find somebody in that capacity for 2 years, and I think, and I know a lot of people that run their own business, there are a lot of those jobs, if you're satisfied to work in a small to medium-sized business, there's a lot of people looking for exactly that position, 100%.
And I think too, just to add as well, not being apprehensive or afraid to, apply to student opportunities. Age is just a number, and it's really about what you're going to bring to the organization when you're there.
Is there any other questions from the audience? Sure. Sean will bring you the mic.
Hi, everybody. My name's Taylor Albert. I'm a third-year accounting student here at the Mount. I have one question actually for Ross. If there's any entrepreneurs in here at all, just wondering how you can build a business based on competing with big names like Moore's and that, and how build it to be as competitive as it is now with the bigger names.
You know what? The first thing is the drive, but the one thing small business has against all these big corporations is service and being the one that is there to answer the question. Because I did a little experiment with Walmart's an amazing company. But this past Christmas, at a party, we talked about how nobody I don't go there. I try to buy only locally, but I had to buy a coffee maker, so I said I'm going to go. And when I went into the store, this is in December, at 11 o'clock in the morning, I saw two ladies there that were trying to buy a coffee maker too, and there was nobody around. So I said, watch this. And I started to scream, help. And I mean loudly. And nobody came. They've used this now at some of their seminars. I'm sorry, it was a year ago, Christmas. But the point is, I think the one thing that we have is the strength of being the one that calls the shots, that has the ideas, and has got the drive. So we've got that over any of those big corporations, and that's our niche. And there's lots of opportunity for that. I don't know if the paper today, but a guy who had Cousin Smoothie's shorts years ago has just relaunched it with his son. And he'll sell a lot of those shorts. You people will probably be buying some from him. But he's reinvented it, but they will do very well. And you can buy shorts for $10 around here at Walmart, and these are $80 shorts. But he's got the desire, his son has got the passion to do it, and I think they'll do very well. So I think there's a ton of opportunity for entrepreneurs still, but that will be the thing that drives it. Don't be afraid of the big guys, because you've got one thing that they will never have.
Any other questions from the audience?
That color's a nice shirt on you, by the way. Okay. You didn't buy it from us, but I like it.
Well, if I can ask a question.
Absolutely, Sean.
I have the microphone, I can do this. You've all mentioned technology, and you've all mentioned using it, and the fact that some of you are sort of more on the senior side of youth nowadays. Do you find it different? Maybe I'll start with our Public Service Commission representative here. Is it different today hiring young people than it was, say, 10 years ago, 15 years ago? And after that, anyone can answer that question.
So 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I like to think I was the young person that was being hired. But I have to say, in terms of public service, it was actually a few years ago where we've had changes in terms of the hiring. If we look at the political side of where our country is going, and Justin Trudeau's position on being, Minister of Youth and that kind of stuff. So there really is a renewal in terms of growth in the public service, confidence in the public service, and recruitment into the public service. So for us now, I would say that we're actually more in a hiring mode. A lot of organizations are actually, ramping up student hiring, doubling the numbers of students that they've hired from previous years, let's say 3, 4, 5 years ago. So I think you guys are really in a good position being students now. So I would say that in terms of trends, what's changed between now and 15 years ago, I think we still look for the same things. I think we're still looking for, people who have a lot of drive, who will bring initiative to the workplace, sound judgment, and who are willing to, work their way up in organizations. I don't think any of us, upon graduation, would not necessarily become, head of an organization unless, you're like Ross, who's running your own business. I don't think that somebody's necessarily going to hire you as a VP tomorrow, but I think it's that drive to get there.
And maybe I can take a slightly different approach, and this is maybe more of something for all of you to be mindful of when we talk about technology and you're out and you're exploring your career paths. And this relates specifically to the publicness that we experience today and how inclined everybody is to share everything in the public sphere now, whether it's, the selfies and the Instagram pics and, the tweets on Twitter. All of these things are now publicly viewable by your future employers. And, one of the cautions that I give to everybody sitting in the room is that a lot of recruiters today are looking at Facebook, they're looking at these mediums, they're actually doing background reviews and checks on people who they're looking at as prospective hires. It gives them tremendous insight into individuals. And, so I think technology can be used in a multitude of ways now when we look at the recruitment process, both to your benefit and then both, as something that I would say to be mindful of.
I would say technology-wise, so there's two things I think about that have changed over the years. It's recruitment and retention. So I think when we hire straight out of university, you want to get things done. Like, you're used to things working quickly, instant gratification, and I'm not stereotyping generally, but I'm more like that now too. As I've grown, and now we have a lot that we have to get done in a limited amount of time, so everything's rush, and I need to get it done, and it has to work. So the stress on a very old organization with very old, very complex systems as you try to layer on and make the face of that new, I think that's challenging for some of my team that are straight from school or younger, much younger than me. And they complain about it a lot and say, you know what, I think we could do this better, faster, but as I mentioned, we're a big organization, so it doesn't change on a dime. So I think about that when I'm retaining and making sure that I can get them to be able to do what they need to do in the time that they expect to be able to do it, and our customers expect them to be able to do it. Recruitment, very different from when I was coming out. I never knew a whole lot about who was interviewing me, so all the power was on the other side, and you were being interviewed. Now, everybody knows my history because they look at LinkedIn, they come in and they know my history, and it's very much a two-way interview, which I like. It's a little unnerving when they tell you they know everything about you in the interview, so I would recommend not doing that because that's unnerved me a few times. But it empowers you to figure out how to relate with somebody, maybe what topics you want to explore, what questions you want to build on based on what you've learned in your research going into interview. So I think it's really put a lot more power back on the interviewee, which I really like.
Yep, it's okay. I was just going to add that same point, the pressure's on you guys with the information that's out there about organizations. I mean, you got 5 organizations here that you can go in and view firsthand into Duggars, into Enterprise, into an RBC, maybe not in Intact as much, but into any government department. But all the information online through Twitter and Facebook pages and the websites, there's so much information out there about the company you're applying for that you need to spend a bit of time learning some of that. And more importantly for you guys, hopefully you're taking that as a challenge to make sure you're prepared for the interview, but also you can quickly see what a company is all about and hopefully make a decision if that's a company you want to work for or not, if the values and that sort of stuff meets with what you're looking for. I know on the Enterprise site, there's lots of testimonials from employees. It talks about our commitment to the environment and our 50 million tree pledge and all these kind of things that you can quickly see, hey, is this a company I want to work for? Is this somebody who maybe doesn't fit what I'm looking for in a career?
Thank you all. Is there any final questions from the audience? Going once. If there are no further questions, then that concludes our Careers in Management panel. On behalf of myself, the students, and the Mounts Business and Tourism Department, I would like to thank you for your participation today. Everybody give them a round of applause. For students looking for a learning passport stamp, you can see Miriam up at the top, or you can see Sean down at the bottom. Thank you so much for coming.
It was nice meeting you all.